Sir, please, we need help. She's so cold. I just want to be warm.
I'm here. We'll find warmth.
Anchorage. Whiteout. On Raven Pass, a stranded bus flickers in the storm. Adrian North, brilliant CEO and broken father, climbs from his snowcat to a shivering boy guarding another child half buried in ice. A titanium gear pendant slips from the child's collar, etched A+N. 10:07. The gift Adrian made the day his baby was born. The boy blinks with Adrian's eyes. Is this his son? Anchorage held its breath under a wall of white. On the top floor of North Labs, glass pressed back the storm, and Adrian North watched the city fade. He looked like the man on magazine covers, tall and fit, dark hair neat at the sides with a disciplined lift on top. Designer frames framed blue eyes that made people lean in. Under a quilted down shell, an Italian suit and a crisp white shirt kept their lines. A silk tie sat straight. A watch ticked at his cuff. Calm authority on the outside and something fragile under it that never healed. Order usually bent to him. North Labs routed plows and ambulances through chaos, predicted black ice before the first spinout, and kept freezer trucks alive on empty roads. His teams trained models to listen to winter itself. Which bridge would glaze first? Where a school generator would fail at 2 in the morning? How a snowcat should edge a drift that hit a culvert? When people asked how it worked, he said, "We feed it the storm until it understands." He smiled with polite warmth and carried the ache time had not dulled. The ache lived in a room he never changed. A small bed, a blanket caught on one corner, board books bent at the edges, a wooden car with one wheel glued back on. He stood in the doorway sometimes and let the air touch him. He did not step in. 5 winters had passed since his toddler son, Noah, vanished when a custody dispute slid into weather and then into silence. Lawyers wrote plans. Snow erased them. A lodge not reached, a van found cold and empty, a trail that narrowed to nothing. In his desk, a narrow drawer held a titanium gear pendant on a thin chain. The gear fit his thumb. Its teeth were clean and even, cut to a shape a child could trace. Under office lights, the metal caught a pale star. The etching ran so small you had to tilt it toward the glare to read it. A+N. 10:07, and the minute a nurse placed Noah on his chest. A private mark he believed 2 people would share for life, no matter how far winter carried them apart. He kept the pendant close when he needed spine. He wore it under suits at hearings. He pressed it to his lip on nights when the inlet lights looked like ships moving under ice. He did not believe in omens. He believed in the weight of small things, and in how a chain warms against the skin when you refuse to take it off. On mornings when sleep broke hard, he turned the gear with his thumb until his breath found a steady pace again. Downstairs, teams finished the Frostline update, a winter brain that would whisper to snowcats and drones. The polar vortex was peaking. Crews were stretched thin from the airport to Raven Pass. He should have been on the command tier, watching dashboards and calling contingencies. Instead, he stood at the window and watched the hills vanish where the city ended and the mountains began. He liked to see the thing they were trying to outthink. Respect keeps you careful, he told new engineers. Respect keeps people alive. Rosa from operations stepped in with a tablet hugged to her chest. Her voice sounded like competence. "We moved the last pallets to the hangar. Cold chain is stable. The county wants us to shadow their plows on Raven Pass." "Shadow is fine," he said. "No heroics. We test and we learn." She hesitated. "You said that last year, the day you rode in the snowcat." He allowed a small smile. "Last year, I said it after I had already climbed in. Today, I am saying it before." Her eyes flicked to the open drawer before he slid it shut. She never asked, and he never explained. That was their pact. "Radio calls for whiteout by nightfall on the pass," she said. "If you are going, go now." He let the thought fill his chest, then leave. The watch ticked. The empty room rose in his mind and settled back. He breathed, steady and slow. "Prep the snowcat," he said. "Prototype rig. I want Frostline to hear the storm in its own voice." Rosa nodded. "Driver in 15. Medical kit restocked. Beacon checks complete." He slipped into the down shell. The fabric made a soft sound, like snow brushing steel. He tucked the pendant under his shirt and let the chain find the warm hollow at his throat. "If we beat the whiteout, we tag trouble and turn back," he said. "And if you do not beat it?" Rosa asked. "Then we listen harder," he said, and he walked toward the freight elevator, toward the hum of engines and the thin door between order and weather. The storm came early. By dusk, the mountains above Anchorage were already buried beneath shifting curtains of white. The snowcat growled against the wind, treads grinding through walls of ice like an animal fighting to breathe. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of ozone and diesel heat. Adrian sat beside the driver, scanning Frostline's live telemetry, red lines twisting like veins across a holographic topography of Raven Pass. Visibility, 6 feet. Wind chill, -31. Life signatures, none detected, until one blinked. "Stop," Adrian said. The driver blinked through fogged goggles. "Sir, we can't stop here. She'll freeze to the ground." "Thermal anomaly, 80 meters ahead," Adrian said quietly. His gloved finger tapped the map. "Near that bus icon." They rolled forward, the storm swallowing the beams of their lights. The snowcat's wipers scraped like metronomes, keeping rhythm with the gale's fury. When the radio crackled, it wasn't Frostline, it was a voice, trembling and small. "Help! Someone, please! Buses!" The signal broke. Static swallowed everything. The driver cursed softly, gripping the wheel tighter. "Probably a looped distress band from one of the county shuttles. They've been out since noon." Adrian leaned closer to the windshield. A shape flickered between gusts, something thin, unsteady, waving an orange flare that burned low, its last sparks fighting the wind. "Stop!" Adrian ordered again, sharper this time. The snowcat lurched to a halt. He grabbed the rescue light and pushed the door open. A blast of snow tore across his face, slicing like glass. He stepped down, boots sinking knee-deep, the cold gnawing through his parka in seconds. "Hey!" he shouted over the wind. "Stay where you are." The figure stumbled closer, a boy, maybe 9 or 10, wiry, cheeks raw and wind-burned. The flare sputtered in his shaking hand. "Sir, please, there's someone trapped, under the shelter. He's not waking up." Adrian's breath clouded as he crouched. "What's your name?" "Finn," the boy said, coughing hard. He's freezing. I couldn't carry him." Adrian turned to the driver. "Grab the thermal blankets and med kit." He followed Finn toward the drift. The storm howled like something alive, clawing at their backs. Under a half-collapsed sheet metal bus stop, a small mound moved weakly beneath packed snow. Adrian dropped to his knees and started digging bare-handed, ignoring the bite of ice. His gloves tore. Blood streaked the snow, bright against the white. "Hold the light," he said. Finn knelt beside him, holding a flashlight with both hands. His fingers were blue, trembling, but he didn't stop. "He was with a woman," the boy said through chattering teeth. "She ran when the van crashed. I found him 2 days ago. I tried to keep him warm." Adrian's heart thudded against his ribs. 2 days? "Yeah. I stole some heat packs from the truck stop." Finn blinked snow from his lashes. "Didn't let him sleep too long. People freeze that way." They freed the boy beneath the snow, a smaller child, maybe 8, with pale lips and lashes crusted in frost. His name came out as a whisper when Finn leaned close. "Noel. Hey. It's okay. Help's here." Adrian brushed snow from the child's face, checking for a pulse. Faint, but there. He sliced open the frozen fabric with his rescue knife, careful not to hurt the skin underneath. And that's when he saw it. A glint of metal. Something small slipped from under the boy's coat, dangling on a frayed cord. Adrian froze. The world went quiet except for the wind. The pendant was shaped like a tiny gear, titanium catching the snowlight, and on its back, barely visible and etching, A+N, 1007. His lungs seized. The noise of the storm vanished under the rush of his heartbeat. He whispered, almost to himself, "No, no, it can't be." Finn looked up confused. "Sir?" Adrian's gloved fingers trembled as he lifted the pendant into his palm. It was cold, heavier than he remembered. He had made one just like it, years ago. The day his son was born, at 10:07 a.m., he had worn it around his neck until the night the police called. He stared at the boy's face. Familiar nose, same faint dimple near the mouth. He pressed 2 fingers to the pulse again. Steady now, alive. The driver shouted from behind them, "Sir, we need to move. Shelter's collapsing." Adrian looked at Finn. "Get inside the cab. Keep the heater on." "What about him?" Finn asked. "I've got him." Adrian lifted the unconscious boy into his arms. The small body felt both impossibly light and unbearably heavy. The wind screamed, but he didn't hear it anymore. He only heard a single name echoing in his head, one he hadn't spoken aloud in years. Noah. Inside the snowcat, the heater groaned at full blast, but the air still carried a ghost of cold. Frostline's dashboard pulsed in warning red across Adrian's screen. Detecting a structural collapse behind them, the shelter they'd just left torn apart by the wind. He steadied the child on the bench, wrapping him in thermal foil. The boy's lashes flickered against his cheeks, barely clinging to consciousness. Finn huddled opposite, his thin parka steaming as ice melted off. His hands shook, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the boy's face like a hawk guarding his find. "What's his name again?" Adrian asked softly. "Noel," Finn said. "At least that's what he told me before he stopped talking." Adrian tucked another blanket around the boy, checking the vitals. Pulse steady but weak. Fingers frostbitten at the tips. He adjusted the oxygen mask. His own heartbeat felt louder than the wind. The pendant still glinted against the child's collar, half hidden beneath foil, catching light from the dashboard. He reached out and turned it over again. A+N, 1007. The letters looked smaller now, as if they'd waited too long to be read. "Where did you find him, Finn?" "Down near the service road," the boy said, rubbing his hands together. "There was a van, half in the ditch. He was crawling out when I saw him. I yelled, but he didn't answer. I pulled him under that shelter when it started snowing harder. He kept saying, 'Mama slipped. The ice broke. Can't find her.'" Then he got quiet. Adrian's throat closed. "You said 2 days ago?" "Yeah," Finn said, nodding. "I gave him my last heat pack last night. Didn't sleep much." Adrian studied him. Dirt streaked Finn's cheeks. His lower lip was cracked from windburn. But his voice held steady. "You saved his life," Adrian said quietly. Finn shrugged. "Didn't do much. Just didn't want to see him die." The simplicity of it pierced through the noise in Adrian's head. He pressed a finger to Frostline's radio. "This is North Labs Snowcat Unit 6-4. I've got 2 minors, 1 hypothermic, 1 stable. Need med evac grid Bravo. Sierra 3. Marking coordinates now." The radio crackled back, distorted by the storm. "Copy. Roads impassable. Closest evac window, 4 hours minimum. Hold position and conserve heat." 4 hours. Adrian exhaled slowly, trying to mask his frustration. He looked at Finn. "What about you? Any family around here?" The boy looked down. "No, sir. Used to have an uncle in town, but he, moved. Been staying behind the bait shop near the river. It's dry, mostly." "Dry?" Adrian echoed, disbelief tugging at his tone. Finn gave a small smile, almost proud. "I found a tarp that doesn't leak much." Adrian swallowed hard. The world was so cold, and yet this boy's courage burned bright. "Finn," he said gently, "how old are you?" "Almost 10. He nodded. You've got more sense than most grown men I know. Finn's eyes flicked toward the unconscious boy. He'll be okay, right? Adrian hesitated. We'll get him warm, then we'll see a doctor. What matters is, he's alive. The words trembled at the edge of his throat. Alive. He brushed the pendant again, careful not to let Finn notice. The gear's edges pressed into his palm, each tooth a reminder. The same pendant he'd commissioned in Boston after Noah's birth. He had made two. One for himself, one for his son. He had lost his when the custody battle began. The other vanished with Noah. Could it be coincidence? Could it? He wanted to believe he was rational, the man who built machines that predicted storms. But nothing rational explained this. The snowcat jolted as another gust slammed its side. The driver cursed. Whiteout's thickening. We can't hold position long. Adrian pressed his earpiece. We'll find a ridge for windbreak. Keep the frost line scanning for thermal anomalies. He turned back to the boys. Finn, how's he doing? Finn touched Noel's arm gently. Still cold, but his skin's pinker now. That's good, right? That's good, Adrian confirmed. Noel stirred faintly, his lips moving without sound. Adrian leaned closer, catching fragments. Van. Ice. Mom. He tried to form words again, but fell back into a shallow sleep. Adrian pulled the pendant free once more. The chain snapped. Frayed clean through. He held it in his gloved fist and whispered, barely audible, 10:07. The driver glanced at him. What? Nothing, Adrian said. Keep driving. He texted a single encrypted message to his head of security. Pull every camera on Raven Pass. Look for a van. Timestamp 2 days prior. Priority red. The snowcat surged forward into the blizzard. The air inside felt fragile, warm only by defiance. Adrian looked between the two boys, one sleeping, one silently staring at him, and realized something deep inside him had shifted. Outside, the storm roared, swallowing the world whole. Inside, 3 lives held on by a thread. The hours crawled by. The snowcat rocked in the wind, a metal heartbeat against the storm's fury. The heater rattled, barely keeping up, but Adrian stayed alert, hand on the pulse of the boy lying beneath the silver blanket. The storm had no mercy. It erased edges, muffled sound, and turned the world into a white abyss. Noel, if that was his name, had begun to stir. His breathing grew stronger, though his eyes still fluttered like paper in the draft. Adrian checked the monitor, its soft beeping steady now. Frostbite on the toes, possible fractures on both legs, but his vitals were holding. Finn sat curled in a blanket, head nodding from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours, Adrian guessed. Every few minutes, the boy's eyes would flick toward Noel, fear flickering there like a candle refusing to go out. You can rest now, Adrian said quietly. Finn shook his head, his voice rough. He gets scared when he wakes up alone. Adrian looked at him for a moment. You know, you did something incredible. Not many people would have stayed out here that long. Finn rubbed his sleeve across his face. Didn't want to leave him. People leave all the time. The words hit Adrian like a knife. He turned away, pretending to check the cabin heater, but his reflection in the glass betrayed him. A man who once left too and lost everything he loved. Noel stirred again, mumbling, and this time the words came clear enough to make Adrian's breath falter. Mom! The van! Don't go! Please don't go! Adrian leaned close. It's okay. You're safe now. The boy whimpered, a sound that tore at the edges of his chest. Then he added something else, slurred but distinct. They said, deliveries. North? Can't feel my legs. Adrian froze. Deliveries. That word didn't belong to a frightened child. It belonged to people who moved money, not people. He glanced toward the driver. Mark that down. Timestamp, audio log, everything. The driver nodded, typing into the console. Finn reached out, resting his small hand on Noel's arm. Shh, it's okay, buddy. You're safe. Adrian's radio pinged. North, this is Control. We have partial feed from Frostline drones. You're near a decommissioned service route, Route 9. No evac until morning. You'll need to shelter in place. Copy that, Adrian said. We'll make it through the night. He cut the transmission and exhaled slowly. He'd faced many storms in his life, financial, legal, public, but none like this one. This storm had a face, a heartbeat, and a pendant that mirrored his own. Finn's voice broke the silence. Sir, why are you helping us? Adrian looked over. Because someone helped me once, he said. Finn frowned, studying him. You don't look like someone who needs help. Adrian's mouth curved, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. That's the trick about storms. They don't care who you are. The boy thought about that, nodding slowly. Then softly, Noel spoke again. It's cold. Where's Daddy? Adrian's hands froze mid-motion. He swallowed hard, forcing calm into his tone. What did you say, Noel? The boy's lips trembled. Daddy. Sings a song. Adrian's vision blurred. The memory of a small voice humming a silly 3-note lullaby echoed through his mind, a tune he'd made up one night when Noah was sick. They used to hum it together. Finn looked between them. You okay, sir? Adrian steadied his voice. Yeah, just keep talking to him, okay? He needs to hear your voice. He turned away, biting the inside of his cheek until he could breathe again. The pendant burned cold against his skin, as if the metal itself remembered. Driver, Adrian said, his voice low. Pull us behind the ridge. I need to stabilize comms and get warmth on this kid. The driver nodded, steering carefully through the white void. The snowcat tilted, then settled into a pocket of relative calm behind a frozen embankment. Inside, Adrian gathered his courage and pressed the pendant back into the boy's hand. Keep this close, he whispered. It means you're safe now. The boy stirred faintly, his eyes fluttering open for the briefest second. In them, Adrian saw himself, the same blue-gray irises, the same half-moon birthmark below the left eye, and for one impossible moment, the storm seemed to fall away. Adrian felt the air leave his lungs. His hands trembled as he whispered the name that had lived only in dreams for 5 long winters. Noah? No response, just the soft rhythm of breathing. But it didn't matter. He turned toward the window, his reflection fractured in the glass, half CEO, half father, clinging to hope. He whispered, I'm here now. Outside, Frostline drones blinked red through the dark, circling like guardian stars. Inside, the world grew still. By dawn, the storm's edge broke like torn silk across the mountains. Weak sunlight seeped through the cracks of cloud, painting the snowcat's cabin in pale silver. Adrian hadn't slept. He sat upright in the passenger seat, the faint hum of the heater and the slow rhythm of 2 sleeping boys keeping him anchored between disbelief and duty. The pendant gleamed on the dashboard, half caught in morning light. A+N, 10:07. The numbers pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat he'd been chasing for years. He'd sent encrypted files overnight, footage, coordinates, everything, to Kira Baines, his most trusted investigator. Former field operative, smart enough to work off-grid, quiet enough to know when to disappear. By the time she answered, the signal was weak, but her tone was sharp. I've traced the registration on that van, Kira said through static. It's not county. It's one of a string. Same plate rotation used by shell companies. Most connect to an old fish cannery near Port Valdez. Closed for years, but night activities logged. Freight, fuel shipments. Something's alive there. Adrian's jaw tightened. Human trafficking? Could be. Could also be cold chain smuggling. But your pendant connection, that's personal. Whoever took your son didn't vanish. They hid under noise. He exhaled slowly, staring at the boy's sleeping face. Can you confirm the child's identity? I can't. Not without DNA, Kira said. But the math fits. Timeline, description, pendant. Someone sold custody and washed their hands. The words landed heavy. He stared out the window at the white horizon, thinking of his ex-wife's sister. Sharp smile, endless debts. The custody battles she'd twisted into personal war. She'd taken Noah on that winter trip against the court's orders. When the van crashed, only her tracks were found leading away. And now, this. He lowered his voice. I need full discretion, Kira. No digital leaks, no press. If this is Noah, if it's really him, he's coming home quietly. I'll get you answers, she said. Stay put till the storm clears. I'll move on the cannery tonight. The signal died. Adrian rubbed his eyes, exhaustion pressing behind them. He turned toward the back cabin. Finn was awake, tucking the blanket tighter around Noelle's small frame. Morning, Adrian said softly. Finn blinked, then smiled faintly. You didn't sleep either, huh? Adrian shook his head. Not really. The boy shrugged. You get used to that. Adrian studied him. There was resilience there, but also something brittle, like glass stretched too thin. You ever go to school, Finn? Sometimes, he said. Used to, before they closed the shelter. Do you trust anyone? Finn tilted his head. You mean like people? Yes, people. He thought for a moment, then shook his head. Not really. They always want something. Adrian leaned back in the seat. Then I'll be different. Finn looked skeptical. You're rich. People like you don't stop for kids in the snow. Maybe not most, Adrian said, his voice low. But I wasn't always rich, and I know what it's like to lose someone you shouldn't have lost. Finn watched him, something shifting in his expression. That kid, Noel, he's your family, isn't he? Adrian hesitated, then nodded once. I think he might be. Finn's voice dropped. Then you gotta find who hurt him. The words came out not as advice, but as experience. The radio crackled again. North Labs 6-4, Med-Evac inbound. 2 minutes. Adrian turned to Finn. You're coming too. Finn blinked. What? No, I'm fine. I can walk back down once it clears. Not a chance, Adrian said firmly. You're going to the clinic. Warm bed. Real food. That's not optional. Finn frowned. Why do you care? Adrian looked at him, voice soft but unyielding. Because someone should have cared sooner. The rotors thundered overhead. The Med-Evac team broke through the swirl of snow, landing in a spray of white powder. Paramedics rushed in, voices clipped and professional. Adrian lifted the stretcher himself, helping guide it through the doorway. When Noel's arm slipped free from the blanket, the pendant swung again, catching sunlight. Adrian caught it midair, fingers tightening around it before laying it gently against the boy's chest. The helicopter door slammed shut. The rotors rose. Finn pressed his face to the window, watching the smaller boy disappear into the blur of snow and sound. Adrian stood beside him, gloved hand resting lightly on his shoulder. We're not done yet, he said. We're going to find out everything. Finn nodded slowly, voice trembling just above a whisper. You're not like other grown-ups, are you? Adrian's lips twitched into a small, weary smile. Depends who you ask. The boy's gaze softened. Then maybe I'll trust you, for now. Adrian looked back at the vanishing helicopter and whispered to himself, That's all I need. As the storm finally broke, he climbed into the snowcat, keyed Frostline's internal comms and gave his order. Send me everything on Port Valdez. Tonight, we find the truth. The helicopter was long gone, just a memory dissolving into the white haze above the ridge. But the silence it left behind pressed heavier than the storm itself. Adrian stood in that silence for a long while, letting the cold burn through his gloves. When he finally climbed back into the snowcat, Finn had fallen asleep, knees pulled up to his chest, head leaning against the fogged window. The boy looked smaller now, swallowed by the blanket, fragile yet stubbornly alive. Adrian studied him with quiet awe. Finn wasn't just brave, he was deliberate, like someone who had learned too early how to survive the kind of world that forgets children. His phone buzzed, a secure ping from Kira. He swiped it open. Kira. Got eyes on the cannery. Kira. Power lines active. Kira. Delivery truck came in 30 minutes ago. Kira. Sending clip. The short feed showed a long shadow of a van pulling up to rusted doors. Figures in heavy parkas moved crates marked perishable medicals. But what drew Adrian's attention wasn't the crates. It was the insignia stenciled faintly on the metal door. Arctic Haven Logistics. His stomach turned. That company had once been a North Labs subcontractor years ago, before a partner he'd trusted was caught skimming funds through shell accounts. Adrian had shut it down, but apparently the rot had simply moved underground. He texted back. Confirm ID of any woman associated with the crash. Brown hair, 30s, possibly injured. Kira's reply came 30 seconds later. Already ahead of you. And Adrian, brace yourself. He waited. Then another clip loaded, a still frame of a woman stepping out of the van, face hidden under a scarf. But the stance, the shape of her coat, it hit him like a blow. His ex-sister-in-law, the woman who'd taken Noah. His breath hitched. She's alive, he whispered, and she's been moving children. The snowcat's heater clicked, pulling him back to the moment. Finn stirred. You okay? Adrian quickly pocketed his phone. Just getting updates. About the other boy? About everything, Adrian said. Finn's gaze lingered. You look mad. Adrian exhaled through his nose. Not mad. Determined. Same thing, sometimes, Finn said softly, curling tighter in the blanket. Adrian turned toward the windshield. Outside, the snow had thinned into a fine mist, a hush spreading over the ravine, the kind of silence only Alaska knew. Endless, indifferent, yet sacred. He remembered standing like this years ago, waiting for news that never came, watching rescue lights fade into fog. That same helpless ache crept up his chest, but he pushed it down. This time, he wouldn't wait for the world to act. He drove through the pass until the radio reconnected to the North Labs grid. The signal came alive with updates, rescue drones rerouting, highway closures, city command chatter. He tuned it all out and focused on a single channel, Kira's voice. DNA confirmation incoming, she said. I had the clinic fast-track results. Adrian's grip on the steering wheel tightened. And? It's a match, Adrian. 99.9%. Noel is Noah. For a few seconds, the world went perfectly still. Even the engine seemed to fall silent beneath the hum of the wind. He shut his eyes and leaned back against the headrest, one hand covering his mouth. Finn looked up, confused by the change in the air. What happened? Adrian opened his eyes slowly. He's my son. The words tasted unreal, like something too fragile to speak aloud. Finn blinked, trying to understand. Your son? The kid I found? Adrian nodded. Yes, my son, Noah. The boy's mouth fell open. So, that's why you looked like you'd seen a ghost. Adrian let out a shaky laugh, one hand pressed to his forehead. Something like that. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the twin pendant, the one he'd kept all these years. He placed it on the dashboard beside the other, still glinting faintly from where Noah had worn it. 2 gears, one story broken in half, and now, somehow, whole again. Finn leaned closer. They match. Adrian nodded. Made together. Same day. He was born at 10:07 in the morning. I thought they were both lost. For a long moment, the cabin filled only with the sound of the wind brushing against steel. Finn whispered, You think he'll remember you? Adrian's throat tightened. I don't know. He was so young when he was taken. Maybe not in his head, Finn said, but maybe here. He tapped his chest gently. People remember who keeps them safe. Adrian turned toward the window, eyes wet. Maybe you're right. When they reached the base station, paramedics were waiting with updates. Noah was alive, recovering, but silent. Trauma-induced mutism, the doctor said. He'd need time and therapy and safety. As the helicopter took Noah toward Anchorage General, Adrian stood watching until it became a speck of light in the distance. "I will not fail you twice," he murmured to the snow. Behind him, Finn tugged on his sleeve. "What now?" Adrian looked down at him. "Now we fight smart." He took out his phone again, typed one last message to Kira. "Pull every record, every alias, every shipment leaving Arctic Haven. Tonight, we end this." He turned toward Finn. "You're coming with me to Raven Pass Lodge. It's safe there. Warm food, real beds." Finn hesitated. "You sure? I'm not exactly the lodge type." Adrian smiled faintly. "Then it's time someone changed that." As they climbed into the vehicle, the wind picked up again, softer now, brushing the snow into new shapes. And for the first time in 5 years, the world didn't feel like a graveyard. It felt like a beginning. Raven Pass. Lodge rose from the blizzard like something carved out of the mountain itself, a fortress of steel, glass, and warmth against the cold. North Labs engineers had built it as an R&D field base for the Frostline AI project, but tonight it felt less like a lab and more like sanctuary. Adrian guided the snowcat through the last turn of the icy road. Frostline's sensors pinged softly, verifying the gate. The reinforced doors slid open, spilling golden light into the white. Inside, Finn stared wide-eyed at the sight. Heated floors, stacked monitors showing live storm data, and a crackling fireplace built from dark volcanic stone. A scent of cedar smoke and fresh coffee filled the air. "You live here?" Finn asked, clutching his threadbare parka closer. Adrian smiled faintly. "No. I built this place for people who work on saving others." Finn scanned the wide room, unsure where to stand. "Feels too clean. Like I might break something." Adrian crouched slightly, meeting his eye level. "Then we'll fix that. You're not here as a guest, Finn. You're part of the team for now. And this?" He pointed to the heavy oak door near the stairs. "This one's yours." Finn blinked. "Mine?" "Your room," Adrian said. "There's a bed, fresh clothes, and a lock on the inside. You decide when to open it." The boy's lips parted, confusion and suspicion warring behind his eyes. "You're saying I can lock you out?" Adrian nodded. "If that's what makes you feel safe." Finn's voice came small. "Nobody ever said that before." "Then maybe it's time someone did." The boy lingered a moment longer before stepping inside the room. The sound of the lock sliding shut echoed softly through the hallway, and somehow it sounded right. Adrian exhaled and made his way to the main console. Frostline's dashboard illuminated the dim room with thin blue light. His security chief had sent updates from Anchorage General. Noah stable, temperature rising, speech still absent but responsive to touch and sound. Adrian reread the line 3 times, his eyes burning with relief and guilt in equal measure. He whispered, "You're safe now, buddy. I swear you'll never face the cold alone again." He traced a finger along the gear pendant lying beside the keyboard. The twin to Noah's. He'd never taken it off until the day he learned of the crash. Putting it back on now felt both like a confession and a vow. Rosa, his longtime field engineer, entered quietly, brushing snow from her sleeves. "I heard the boy's alive." Adrian nodded. "Barely, but yes. He's my son, Rosa." Her eyes widened, filling with understanding. "The one you lost?" He nodded again, words sticking in his throat. Rosa placed a hand over her heart. "That's a miracle, Adrian." "Maybe," he said softly. "But miracles need proof. We found who took him. I want everything connected to Arctic Haven traced. Funding, shell accounts, every truck manifest within 200 miles. No corporate interference. We do this quietly." Rosa hesitated. That could put North Labs in the crosshairs again. Last time you exposed a logistics ring, they buried you in lawsuits for a year. Adrian turned toward her, eyes hardening. I'll take the lawsuits. I won't take silence. She nodded, knowing better than to argue. As she left, Adrian walked to the window. The world outside shimmered with frost. His reflection ghosted against it. Somewhere beyond those ridges, his son slept in a hospital bed, unaware his father was fighting through the snow to reach him. Behind him, a door creaked open. Finn stood barefoot in the hallway, wearing a fresh thermal sweater that looked 2 sizes too big. His hair was still damp from a shower, sticking up at odd angles. I thought I heard someone talking, Finn said. Couldn't sleep. Adrian gestured toward the fire. Join me. The boy padded over, wary but curious. Adrian handed him a mug of cocoa, steam curling between them. You ever seen stars this bright? Adrian asked, nodding toward the glass wall. Finn shook his head. Never had a window that big. Adrian smiled faintly. Then this one's all yours tonight. They sat in silence, listening to the wind howl against the walls. Then Finn spoke, his voice quieter. You think your kid'll talk again? I hope so, Adrian said. But if not, I'll still listen. Finn looked at him, brow furrowed. How do you listen to someone who doesn't talk? Same way you saved him, Adrian said, by paying attention. The boy looked down at his cocoa, then back up. He's lucky, you know. Adrian's gaze softened. So am I. Finn blinked, not expecting that answer. Why you? Because you found him, Adrian said simply. The fire popped softly between them. Upstairs, Frostline's sensors hummed, quietly logging weather changes and heartbeats of the building itself. But inside the lodge, something deeper thawed, the quiet beginnings of trust. Adrian leaned back, eyes closing briefly. For the first time in years, the sound of the storm outside didn't make him feel alone. Morning light spilled across the lodge, thin and cold, but honest. For the first time in days, the wind had stilled. Raven Pass looked almost peaceful. Drifts sculpted into soft arcs, sunlight refracting off ice crystals like tiny stars. Inside, warmth hummed through the pipes, the scent of coffee and wood smoke grounding the space. Adrian stood at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, stirring pancake batter in a cast-iron bowl. The lodge had been built for research teams, not families, but it didn't matter. This morning, it felt like home, at least the beginning of one. Finn padded in, hair sticking up, wrapped in a fleece blanket like a cape. He blinked at the counter. You cook? Adrian smiled faintly. Sometimes. My mother taught me before she trusted me with anything important, like a soldering iron. Finn eyed the skillet skeptically. You sure you didn't just program the stove to do it for you? Adrian chuckled, pouring batter. Not everything can be automated. Finn climbed onto a stool, watching the pancakes bubble. So, what now? You gonna take your son home? Like, forever home? Adrian paused, flipping a pancake with slow precision. That's the plan. Once he's healed, yes. But it's not just about bringing him home. It's about giving him a life where he decides what home means. Finn tilted his head. You talk weird sometimes, you know that? I'm told it's part of the CEO job description. Finn laughed. Small, cautious, but real. Then he fell quiet, tracing the wood grain on the counter. I never had a real home. Just rooms. Places people let me stay until they didn't. Adrian looked over. Then let this be your first one, even if it's temporary. The boy's shoulders stiffened. You don't have to do that. I don't need... Yes, you do. Adrian interrupted gently. Everyone needs a place that feels safe. Finn stared into his cocoa. You sound like somebody who lost theirs. Adrian smiled faintly. Maybe that's why I recognize it. Silence settled, comfortable this time. Then Adrian's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen. A secure message from Kira. Kira. Confirmed footage from the cannery. Ex-sister-in-law involved. Multiple minors. Interstate routes. Kira. Feds will need cooperation. Your name's in archived contracts. They'll come to you soon." He exhaled, shoulders tightening. Finn noticed. "Bad news?" "Complicated news." He set the phone face down, forcing calm back into his tone. "There's something I have to tell you, Finn. That boy you saved, his name isn't really Noel, it's Noah. He's my son." Finn blinked. "Wait, your son? The one who disappeared?" Adrian nodded slowly. Finn's eyes widened. "So, I found your kid? Like, your actual kid?" "Yes," Adrian said softly, "and I owe you more than I can ever repay." Finn shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I just couldn't leave him there." Adrian leaned forward, voice low. "You say that like it's nothing, but it isn't. Most people don't stop in a blizzard for someone they don't know. You did." Finn swallowed, eyes darting away. "'Cause I know what it's like to be the one nobody stops for." The words hit hard. Adrian placed the spatula down, studying the boy. "That ends now." Before Finn could answer, the lodge comm system chimed. Rosa's voice came through. "Adrian, you'll want to see this. Media's sniffing around the Valdez site. Someone leaked drone footage of your rescue last night." Adrian rubbed his temple. "Of course they did." Finn frowned. "Is that bad?" "It could be," Adrian admitted. "The wrong people will spin it before we can tell the truth." He grabbed his jacket. "Stay here. Finish breakfast. I need to take this call upstairs." "Am I in trouble?" Finn asked quietly. Adrian turned back, softening. "No, kid. You're the only part of this that makes sense." He left for the control room, heart pounding. Screens lit the space like cold moons. On one feed, headlines already scrolled. Tech CEO found with missing child. Was it a setup? Secret heir or staged rescue? Adrian sank into the chair. The pendant around his neck felt heavy. He typed fast, connecting to Kira again. "Leaks spreading," she said grimly. "I can't contain it. Whoever's behind this wants your credibility burned before you go public about the trafficking ring." He clenched his jaw. "Then we get ahead of it. If I'm going to lose everything, I'm losing it for the truth." Rosa entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. "If you need a statement, we can stream direct from the lodge." "Not yet," Adrian said. "First, I want to see my son." Rosa nodded. "Clinic just called. Surgery scheduled for tomorrow morning. They say he's strong enough." For the first time that morning, Adrian's chest loosened. "Good. Then we'll be there." He looked toward the window where Finn's reflection flickered faintly in the distance. Small, curious, watching the snow. 2 boys saved in one storm. One by blood, one by chance. He turned back to Rosa. "Prepare the helicopter. We're heading to Anchorage tonight." As she left, Adrian whispered to himself, "I won't let them take either of you again." Outside, frost glittered like a promise that hadn't been broken yet. By nightfall, the wind returned. Gentler now, but still restless, sweeping across the lodge like a whisper that refused to die. Adrian stood on the balcony, gloved hands braced against the railing, watching distant lights flicker along the valley road. Somewhere beyond that ridge, Anchorage pulsed under the storm's bruised sky. Somewhere down there, his son slept in a hospital bed, hooked to machines that hummed like lullabies. He'd seen the report. Stable, responsive to touch, still mute. The doctors called it trauma-induced silence. They couldn't say how long it might last. But to Adrian, silence wasn't absence. It was protection. The boy had survived the unthinkable. He'd speak when the world deserved his voice again. Behind him, the lodge's fire crackled. Finn padded out in wool socks, clutching a folded piece of paper. "You keep walking out here," he said. "You don't even have a coat on." Adrian glanced down. "Old habit. I think better when I can see the horizon." Finn squinted through the snow haze. "There's not much to see tonight." "Exactly." Adrian smiled faintly. "That's when you find what's real." Finn approached, holding out the paper. "I made this. For him." Adrian unfolded it carefully. Crayon lines, shaky but bright, showed two boys standing on a snowy road, one holding a broken flare. Above them, a taller figure bent low, arms open. Across the top, Finn had scrawled in block letters, "Don't sleep too long." Adrian swallowed the lump in his throat. "That's what you told him, isn't it? In the storm." Finn nodded. "Yeah. My mom used to say that before she left. She meant don't give up." Adrian rested a hand on his shoulder. "Then she taught you something worth keeping." Finn's eyes glistened. "You really think he's going to be okay?" "Yes," Adrian said firmly. "And so are you." The boy didn't look convinced. "People say that a lot." "I'm not people," Adrian said, turning to face him. "And I don't say things I don't mean." For a moment, Finn just stared at him, measuring him, testing the truth behind those words. Then he nodded once and leaned against the railing. Below, Frostline's perimeter drones blinked in rhythm, marking safe paths through the snow. Adrian watched their quiet dance and thought about everything those machines could do: predict a drift, map a danger, even find a lost heartbeat under 3 feet of ice. But none of them could do what one boy in a threadbare parka had done: choose compassion without reason. The world was built on data, but survival still came down to instinct. A low chime sounded from his wrist comm. He tapped it. "North, here." Kira's voice came through, low and urgent. "We've confirmed trafficking routes tied to Arctic Haven. Interstate logs show miners moved through rural cold storage shipments under falsified tags. And Adrian, one of their funders, is a major North Labs investor." Adrian's breath frosted. "Who?" "Robert Layton," she said. "Board member. He funneled money through the subsidiary before you shut it down. My guess? He's still protecting their supply lines." Adrian felt the air leave his lungs. Layton, his mentor, once the man who'd vouched for his first funding round. "He knew," Adrian whispered. "He knew all this time. Public exposure will tank the company if we don't handle it carefully," Kira warned. "But you can't bury this, not after what they did." "No," Adrian said. "Not this time." He ended the call and stood still, letting the snow sting his face. Finn watched quietly, reading the tension in his shoulders. "You look like someone about to break something expensive," the boy said. Adrian huffed a laugh, the sound brittle. "Maybe just the system that lets monsters hide in plain sight." Finn grinned faintly. "Can I help?" Adrian looked down at him, really seeing him this time, not as a kid rescued from the cold, but as someone who'd already chosen bravery once and would do it again. "You already are," he said softly. They stayed there a while, the snow falling light and endless. Inside, the screens glowed with news feeds spinning half-truths, the world already turning his miracle into scandal. But out here, the air was clear, and the sound of the wind carried something like peace. Finally, Adrian said, "Tomorrow, I go to Anchorage. I'll see Noah before surgery. After that, the press, the board, the truth. It's going to get loud." Finn tilted his head. "Loud doesn't scare me. Quiet does." Adrian looked at him, the boy's small frame framed against the white expanse. "Then you're braver than most adults I know." The boy smiled shyly. "You gonna sing that song again? The one you hummed when we were in the snowcat?" Adrian hesitated, then nodded. The melody was simple. 3 rising notes, 1 falling. A song meant to remind a child that warmth existed, even in the coldest places. He hummed it softly, the sound carrying through the crisp air. For a second, he imagined Noah hearing it somewhere miles away, maybe stirring, maybe remembering. When the tune ended, Finn whispered, "You should sing it for him tomorrow." "I will," Adrian said, "and this time, he'll know it's me." The boy smiled and headed back inside, leaving Adrian alone on the balcony once more. The wind picked up just enough to whisper through the railings. Soft, steady, like a lullaby answered across the distance. Adrian touched the pendant beneath his shirt and whispered to the storm, "Tomorrow we come home." The next morning, the world felt softer. Not warmer, but lighter, as if the storm had finally spent its rage. Frost clung to every pine branch outside the lodge, glittering like the memory of battle. Adrian dressed quietly, the air alive with the small sounds of morning. Coffee dripping, logs shifting in the fire, the hum of Frostline drones circling an idle standby. Finn was already up, wearing one of Adrian's wool sweaters that nearly swallowed him. He sat on the rug, feeding crumbs to a sparrow that had found its way inside through the cracked balcony door. "Guess he likes it here," Finn murmured. Adrian crouched beside him. "Maybe he knows it's safe." "Nothing's safe forever," Finn said simply. Adrian's hand paused mid-air. He didn't argue. "Maybe not, but we can make it safe for a while." Finn glanced up. "You leaving today?" "Yeah," Adrian said softly. "Surgery's in a few hours. You'll come with me." Finn frowned. "You sure? Hospitals don't like kids like me hanging around." "They'll like you fine," Adrian said. "And if they don't, they'll answer to me." That earned him a small smile. "Big talk, boss man." "I mean every word," Adrian said, zipping his parka. The flight to Anchorage was short, cutting over endless white peaks and frozen rivers like silver veins. The helicopter's interior hummed with quiet tension. Finn watched clouds blur by, his breath fogging the window, while Adrian scrolled through Frostline's reports on a tablet. North Lab's stock had dropped 8% overnight. Blogs screamed headlines of conspiracy and scandal. Anonymous posts claimed he'd faked the rescue to boost PR, and yet, buried under all that noise, a message from Rosa blinked on screen. Clinic cleared. Noah in prep. He asked for the song. Adrian's chest tightened. He looked out the window, the world below turning to a wash of blue-white. When they landed, the wind carried the sharp, sterile cold of the hospital campus. Cameras already lingered outside the glass atrium, reporters craning for a glimpse. Adrian's security detail formed a quiet wall around him as he ushered Finn inside. Inside, the corridors glowed white and antiseptic. The faint scent of antiseptic and coffee filled the air. Finn stayed close, eyes wide. "Feels like a spaceship." Adrian smiled slightly. "A spaceship that fixes people." They reached the pediatric wing. Rosa waited outside the door, her expression both relieved and cautious. "He's awake," she said softly. "Sedated, but awake. He recognized your voice this morning." Adrian froze mid-step. "Recognized?" Rosa nodded. "When the nurse hummed that tune you sent, he squeezed her hand. Twice." Adrian's throat tightened. "Thank you." He entered the room slowly. Machines blinked in gentle rhythm. The boy, his boy, lay pale under warm blankets, small fingers bandaged, one arm threaded with IV lines. His hair had grown longer, curling at the edges, but the shape of his face was the same as the photo Adrian still kept in his wallet, only older, marked by shadows no child should carry. He pulled the chair closer, sitting beside the bed. His voice trembled. "Hey, buddy." No response, just steady breathing. Adrian reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "You're safe now. You did so good, Noah. You held on." Finn lingered by the doorway, clutching the drawing he'd made. "Should I give it to him?" Adrian nodded. "He'd like that." Finn approached quietly, sliding the crayon drawing onto the bedside table. The corner brushed against the gear pendant lying there. Cleaned, polished, resting atop a folded hospital gown. The twin to the one around Adrian's neck. The boy's fingers twitched, reaching toward it. Adrian leaned forward, whispering, "Yeah, that's yours, kiddo." Noah's eyelids fluttered open. For a heartbeat, those same blue-gray eyes met his. Confused, hazy, but familiar. Then his lips moved. No sound came out. Adrian took his hand gently. "Don't push it. Just listen." He hummed the three-note tune. Soft, steady, the one that had lived in his chest for 5 years. The machines beeped quietly in time. Noah's gaze sharpened. He blinked once, then twice, and for the first time since the rescue, his hand squeezed back. Rosa covered her mouth. Finn grinned so hard it broke through the tension in the room. Adrian's voice cracked as he whispered, "I'm here, son. You don't have to be cold anymore." Tears blurred his vision. The boy's hand tightened again, weaker now, but sure. He wasn't just responding to a sound. He was answering a promise. Outside the hospital, news vans gathered. Adrian's comm buzzed nonstop. Board members, legal teams, PR advisors all demanding a statement. But for the first time in his career, Adrian didn't care about optics. He cared about the small pulse beating against his palm, the boy breathing beside him, and the second chance that had somehow fought its way through the snow. Finn leaned against the doorframe. "He's going to be okay, right?" Adrian nodded slowly. "He already is." "Good," Finn said softly, "'cause you both kind of needed each other." Adrian looked up at him and smiled through tears. "Yeah, we really did." The machines beeped steady, the tune still echoing faintly in the room. For a brief, quiet moment, the world outside ceased to exist. By afternoon, word had spread beyond the hospital walls. News anchors used phrases like "miracle rescue" and "missing heir found," while others whispered darker theories: fabricated PR stunt, corporate smokescreen. Each headline felt like a weight pressing down on the fragile calm Adrian had just begun to rebuild. From Noah's room, the world looked deceptively simple. Snow fell in slow spirals past the window, softening the chaos outside. Machines blinked steady, their rhythm matching the quiet rise and fall of his son's chest. Finn sat cross-legged in a chair, cutting shapes out of paper for a snowflake chain. "You think the nurses will hang these up?" he asked. Adrian smiled faintly. "If they know what's good for them." Finn grinned, then grew serious. "You got that face again, the one that means bad news." Adrian leaned back in the chair, exhaustion creasing the corners of his eyes. "The company's under fire. Someone leaked internal files to the media. They're twisting the rescue into something it wasn't." "Like saying you staged it?" Finn said, frowning. Adrian nodded. "Exactly. They're accusing me of exploiting a tragedy for stock value." Finn tilted his head. "That's stupid. You were out there in the storm. I saw you bleed." "Doesn't matter," Adrian said quietly. "Truth doesn't always beat a good story." Finn hesitated. "What are you going to do?" Adrian looked at his sleeping son. "Tell a better one." An hour later, Rosa entered the room with her tablet pressed to her chest. "You're trending, Adrian," she said grimly. "Half the news calls you a hero. The other half calls you a fraud. Layton's team is pushing the narrative that you used North Lab's funds to hide personal investigations." Adrian's jaw tightened. "He's covering his tracks." "Frostline servers were hit too," Rosa continued. "Cyber attack from an offshore relay. It's deliberate, same signature used against us 3 years ago." Adrian stood, pulling on his coat. "I'll handle it from the lodge. Right now, we protect what matters." Rosa caught his arm. "The board's panicking. They're threatening to suspend you." "Let them," he said. "I built North Labs to save lives, not protect reputations." Finn looked up from the paper snowflakes, wide-eyed. "They can fire you?" Adrian forced a smile. "They can try." Outside, Anchorage's streets glistened with slush and streetlight reflections. Adrian's convoy cut through downtown, flanked by unmarked security vehicles. Protesters had gathered near the North Labs building, some holding justice for the missing signs, others waving "Stop the Lies." The air vibrated with shouts and camera flashes. At the lodge, Rosa met him at the comm station. "We still have a feed to every Frostline node," she said. "You could use the broadcast system for a live statement." Adrian looked at her. Not just a statement, a reckoning. He tapped the console, the interface blooming to life. On the main screen, He could see Finn's paper snowflakes still taped to the hospital window, Noah's window. They fluttered faintly in the vent's breeze like tiny white witnesses. He whispered to himself, "All right, let's give them something real." He stood before the camera. No tie, just a gray sweater and tired eyes that told the truth better than any speech could. "My name is Adrian North," he began, voice steady. 5 years ago, my son disappeared during a winter trip gone wrong. 2 days ago, I found him alive because a boy named Finn chose compassion over fear. The feed streamed to every Frostline hub across the state. Since that day, Adrian continued, I've learned that the systems we build, machines, companies, governments, mean nothing if they can't protect the most vulnerable among us. And I've discovered something far uglier. Parts of my own company were funding operations that turned children into commodities. Rosa's hand hovered over the mute button, but he shook his head. Let them hear it. Adrian's voice grew firmer. So, tonight, North Labs is opening every winter logistics algorithm, every rescue route, every resource tracker to the public. No licenses, no paywalls. The Open Winternet will be free to every small town, every rescue team, every volunteer who refuses to let someone freeze alone. He paused, the silence powerful. And for the children still out there, because there are always more, we're launching the Raven Pass Fellowship. It will fund trauma care, legal aid, and education for survivors of exploitation. Finn, if you're watching, that includes you. Back in the hospital room, Finn's eyes widened. He turned to Rosa, who was streaming it live on her tablet. He said my name. He sure did, Rosa whispered. Adrian leaned forward toward the camera, voice soft but unyielding. To those who tried to silence us, you failed. To those still missing, we're coming for you. To my son, Noah, you brought me back to life. And to every child like him, this storm ends now. He ended the feed. For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of servers cooling. Rosa exhaled shakily. You just declared war on your own board. Adrian turned to her, eyes calm. No, I declared peace on everyone else. Hours later, as the world lit up with headlines, North Labs goes public with life-saving AI. Adrian stood alone by the window, pendant resting against his palm. Outside, the snow had begun again, but softer now, almost gentle. He whispered to the night, We're finally coming home. By dawn, the world had already changed. Overnight, Adrian's broadcast had spread across every major network and social platform. Some called it reckless transparency. Others called it the most courageous corporate act in decades. The North Labs logo now glowed beside hashtags like Open Winternet and a Raven Pass Promise. But power rarely surrendered quietly. At the Anchorage Lodge, Rosa scrolled through alerts. Half the board resigned before sunrise. Layton's lawyers filed injunctions accusing you of data theft. But here's the twist. Government agencies are already requesting Frostline access. The governor himself just thanked you publicly. Adrian stood by the window, watching a fresh line of light spill across the frozen peaks. Good. Let them have it. The system should never have been locked in the first place. Behind him, Finn shuffled in wearing a blanket cape, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. You look like someone who didn't sleep. I didn't, Adrian said. Sleep feels like a luxury these days. Finn handed him a mug. So, did you win? Adrian took a sip, smiling faintly. Winning's not the goal, Finn. Doing what's right is. The boy studied him. Feels the same to me. They flew to Anchorage General just after sunrise. The helicopter's reflection shimmered across glassy snowfields, cutting a thin shadow over the world below. When they landed, cameras swarmed again, but Adrian barely noticed. Inside the hospital, the air buzzed with cautious optimism. Nurses smiled as they passed, whispering about the video that had gone viral overnight, the CEO who cried on camera while talking about children he refused to lose again. When Adrian stepped into Noah's room, the machines were quieter now, fewer wires, more life. His son was sitting upright, eyes fixed on the window. The sunlight hit his hair in gold streaks. Finn froze in the doorway. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "You remember me?" Noah turned, his expression still hesitant, but not afraid. His lips parted, no words yet, but he reached out. Finn stepped forward, hand shaking, and placed the drawing, creased, colorful, and hopeful, back into his grasp. Adrian's throat tightened. He kept it. The doctor, a calm woman in her 40s, smiled faintly. He responds best to familiar voices, and to music. Adrian sat beside the bed. "Then let's give him both." He took Noah's small hand, feeling warmth at last. He hummed the familiar tune, 3 rising notes, 1 falling, the same melody that once echoed through a nursery years ago. Noah blinked, eyes welling, and for the first time he whispered, barely audible but clear, "Dad." The word shattered Adrian's composure. He let out a shaky laugh that turned into tears. "Yeah," he whispered. "It's me. I'm here, son." Finn smiled from the corner, wiping his face with the sleeve of his too-big sweater. "Told you he'd remember," he said quietly. Noah turned his gaze toward Finn and managed a faint, trembling smile. His fingers reached out for the boy's sleeve, a small gesture that meant more than language could carry. The doctor nodded. "He's ready for surgery. His vitals are strong. If recovery holds, he'll walk again." Adrian pressed a kiss to his son's forehead. "You hear that? You'll run again someday." The boy mouthed one word back. "Promise?" Adrian nodded, his voice breaking. "Promise." Hours later, as surgeons worked, Adrian stood in the waiting area staring through frosted glass. The hospital's intercom buzzed with distant announcements, but all he heard was the sound of that single word replaying in his head. Dad. Rosa joined him, tablet in hand. "You should know, North Lab's servers stabilized. The cyber attack failed, and the FBI raided Arctic Haven last night. They found the other missing kids." Adrian turned sharply. "Alive?" "3 of them," Rosa said softly, "including one who gave them your pendant number. It was their proof of safety code." He blinked hard, gripping the railing to stay upright. "So, they used the engraving?" "Yes. A+N, 1007. They said the man who helped them promised it meant hope." He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. The symbol he'd made for love had become something larger than himself. An anchor passed from hand to hand through the cold. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "Get Kira. Tell her we're not shutting this down. We build the fellowship immediately. Medical, therapy, schooling, whatever they need." Rosa nodded, emotion flickering across her face. "And the board? They can rebuild their egos later," Adrian said. "I'm rebuilding lives." Finn appeared at his side, clutching 2 vending machine coffees. "You look like you could use this," he said. Adrian chuckled softly, taking the cup. "You know, Finn, I think you might have a future in leadership." The boy raised a brow. "What, like you?" "No," Adrian said gently. "Better." Finn kicked at the floor, cheeks pink. "I don't know. I've never led anything." "You led my son out of the cold," Adrian said. "That's more leadership than most grown men ever show." They sat in silence for a moment. Through the glass they could see movement, nurses adjusting monitors, a surgeon's silhouette nodding. Then the intercom chimed softly. "Surgery complete, patient stable." Adrian's knees almost buckled with relief. He exhaled, head bowed. "Thank you," he whispered to no one in particular. Finn smiled faintly. "See? You both made it." Adrian looked at him. "We all did." Later that night, Anchorage glittered below the hospital windows. News tickers ran across every screen. North Labs open winter net cuts rescue delays by 28% in first day. But in room 204, the world had shrunk to a single glow, the soft monitor light reflecting off the titanium gear pendant now resting on Noah's chest. Adrian sat between the two boys, one sleeping peacefully, the other fighting yawns. He placed an arm around Finn's shoulders and whispered, "We're going to make sure this never happens to another child again." Finn nodded sleepily. "You really think we can?" Adrian smiled. "Yeah, kid, because this time we're not fighting the storm alone." Morning sunlight poured through the hospital blinds, warm and gentle for the first time in what felt like years. The blizzard had passed, leaving the world glazed in quiet gold. Inside room 204, machines beeped softly, steady and reassuring. Noah was propped up in bed, his left leg wrapped and elevated, the bandages around his hands replaced with lighter dressings. His eyes were open, clear, alive. Adrian stood by the window, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the pendant chain glinting at his collar. He looked younger somehow, tired, yes, but unburdened. The doctor had just finished her rounds. "He's healing well," she said. "Physical therapy starts in a few days. With patience and support, he'll regain full mobility." "Patience I have," Adrian said quietly. "Support. He's got more than he knows." She smiled and slipped out, leaving them in soft silence. Finn sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, a comic book balanced on his knees. "See, I told you pancakes fix everything," he said, grinning. Noah gave a faint smile, the corners of his mouth trembling but genuine. He mouthed something. Finn squinted. "Did you just say chocolate chips?" Noah nodded weakly, eyes sparkling. Adrian laughed, a sound that surprised even him. "All right, chocolate chip pancakes it is, every morning until you're sick of them." The boys shared a look. It was the kind of look brothers might share, not by blood, but by something deeper. Adrian's phone buzzed on the counter. He checked the screen and frowned slightly. "It's Rosa." He stepped into the hall. Her voice came through calm but urgent. "Adrian, it's official. The Raven Pass Fellowship is trending in all 50 states. People are donating, volunteering, even hosting drives for missing youth. You did it." He shook his head. "No. We did it." "Layton's team tried to file an emergency injunction this morning," she added. "Didn't go through. The feds have him in custody." Adrian exhaled, a slow, steady breath that seemed to clear 5 years of grief at once. "Then it's over." Rosa paused. "Or maybe it's just beginning." He smiled faintly. "That's the better answer." When he re-entered the room, Finn and Noah were giggling quietly. Finn had discovered the height controls on the hospital bed and was raising and lowering it, making Noah laugh soundlessly, but with pure joy. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, watching them. "You're going to get us banned from this hospital." "Worth it," Finn said, smirking. Adrian walked over and knelt beside them. "You two know what tomorrow is?" Noah tilted his head. Finn shrugged. "Tuesday?" "Better," Adrian said. "Home day." Finn's eyes widened. "Home? Like your house?" Adrian nodded. "My house. But only if you want to come. There's a room for each of you. Real beds, real locks." The boy's expression flickered between disbelief and fear. "You don't have to do that. I'm fine where I am." Adrian rested a hand on his shoulder. "You've been fine on your own long enough. It's time to be more than fine." Finn hesitated. "I don't know how to be in a family." Adrian's voice softened. "Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together." Noah reached out suddenly, tugging weakly at Finn's sleeve. Then he pointed to the drawing taped to the wall, the one Finn had made in crayon. "Don't sleep too long." Finn blinked, then smiled through watery eyes. "Guess that's a yes, huh?" Noah nodded, lips curving into a grin that melted every wall still standing in Adrian's chest. Adrian brushed a hand through his son's hair. "You're both coming home. That's final." Later that afternoon, the three of them walked slowly down the hospital corridor, Noah in a wheelchair, Finn pushing him, Adrian beside them. The staff lined the hall, clapping softly as they passed. Nurses, orderlies, even patients from other rooms smiled, some wiping their eyes. Outside, the air was crisp, the snow packed firm underfoot. The helicopter stood waiting on the pad, its blades still. Finn stopped short, staring at the reflection of the three of them in the hospital glass. "You know," he said, "we kind of look like a family photo already." Adrian looked down at him. "That's because we are one." Finn turned red, hiding a smile. "Then you better be ready for a lot of noise." Adrian laughed. "After 5 years of silence, I think I can handle it." That night, Raven Pass Lodge glowed like a beacon under the stars. The snowcat was parked outside, its sides scratched and battered but still running, a monument to the storm that had brought them together. Inside, the fire burned bright. Noah slept upstairs, his pendant resting against his chest. Finn sat on the couch, flipping through the channels, still marveling at the idea of having his own remote control. Adrian stood at the massive glass wall, looking out at the night sky. The drones were gone now, grounded for maintenance. The only lights were natural. The aurora, faint but alive, brushing the horizon in silent color. Finn's voice broke the quiet. "So, what happens now?" Adrian turned, smiling. "Now, we live, we heal, we build." The boy nodded slowly, satisfied with that answer. "And pancakes tomorrow?" "Always," Adrian said. Finn grinned, curling into the couch. "Cool." Within minutes he was asleep, blanket slipping down his shoulder. Adrian watched him, then looked upstairs where Noah's nightlight glowed faintly. 2 lives found in one storm. 2 souls that had pulled him back from the edge of isolation. He sat down, the firelight flickering across his face, and whispered to the quiet room, "You brought me back, both of you, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving you were worth every second of that storm." Outside, snow drifted softly against the glass, peaceful now, as if even the mountains were finally at rest. Spring came slowly to Anchorage that year, first as a hush, then as a thaw. The snow along Raven Pass melted in delicate rivers that cut through pine roots and polished stone. The air smelled of cedar and wet soil. For the first time in years, Adrian woke to birdsong instead of wind. Downstairs, sunlight spilled across the lodge kitchen, turning the countertops gold. Finn was already there, standing on a stool in one of Adrian's aprons, flipping pancakes that were far from perfect but made with fierce concentration. "Don't hover," he said without looking up. "You're making me nervous." Adrian leaned against the doorframe, amused. "I was just going to say they smell good." "Yeah?" Finn smirked. "Well, they're for Noah, so hands off." From the hallway, a small laugh, a real, unguarded sound, floated in. Noah stood leaning on his new crutches, the red beanie stitched with 1007, pulled low over his hair. His legs still trembled when he moved, but his smile was steady now. Adrian crouched, arms open. "Someone's up early." Noah's grin widened. He took a few careful steps, the crutches clicking softly on the wood floor, and when he reached his father, he dropped one hand from the handle just long enough to hug him. Adrian's voice broke. "You're getting stronger every day." "Promise kept," Noah whispered. His voice was still quiet, but every syllable carried power. Finn looked up from the skillet. "Hey, Miracle Boy, breakfast's almost ready. You want syrup or—" Noah didn't hesitate. "Chocolate chips." Adrian burst out laughing. "That's my son." They ate together at the big pine table, 3 plates, 1 story. The sunlight poured in through the tall windows, catching the twin pendants that now hung side by side above the fireplace, their etched code gleaming faintly. A+N, Chapter 1007. A week later, North Labs officially reopened with new leadership. Adrian at the helm again, this time with a different mission. In the heart of the city, a new building was unveiled, the Raven Pass Center for Youth Recovery. Frostline AI now powered real-time rescue routes for stranded travelers, but its deeper purpose had changed. to find missing children faster, to connect to shelters across states, to make sure no one slipped through the cracks. The press wanted sound bites. Adrian gave them humanity instead. "We built Frostline to predict storms," he said to the cameras. "But the greater work is learning to end the ones inside people, the ones that make them invisible. Every number on our map is a person. Every coordinate is a story. No more forgotten names." When the applause faded, he stepped aside so the real founders could stand beside him. 2 boys. Finn in a blazer a size too big, shifting awkwardly but smiling, and Noah leaning on his crutches, the pendant shining proudly against his sweater. "Meet the first Raven fellows," Adrian said. "My sons." The crowd fell silent, then erupted into applause. That evening, back at the lodge, quiet replaced the noise of celebration. The boys sat outside on the porch, watching twilight settle over the valley. Finn tossed a pebble into the snowmelt creek. "So, what now, boss?" Adrian smiled. "Now we keep our promise." Noah looked up. "The one about doors?" Adrian nodded. "Exactly." He pointed to the photo taped above the mantel inside, a picture Rosa had taken that morning. The 3 of them standing outside the hospital weeks earlier, sunlight pouring over them. Above it, in Finn's block handwriting, the caption read, "We choose open doors." Adrian's gaze softened. That's what this place is going to stand for. No more locked rooms. No more kids left in the cold. Finn leaned back on his elbows, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You really think we can change all that?" Adrian looked at both of them. "We already did." The last of the light faded. The mountains glowed faintly pink before giving into dusk. The fire inside crackled, and the lodge's big windows caught the reflection of 3 figures framed in amber light. A man and 2 boys. A family rebuilt from the storm. Noah reached for his father's hand, fingers small but certain. Finn rested his head against the wooden post, content. For the first time in half a decade, Adrian didn't feel haunted by the cold. He felt surrounded by life, fragile, hard-won, and astonishingly warm. He whispered into the quiet, half to himself, half to the memory of the storm that started it all. "You gave me back my son, and somehow, you gave me 2. Outside, the wind sighed over the peaks, no longer a howl, but a lullaby. And somewhere far below, the faint pulse of Frostline's lights flickered across the valley, tracing the roads that would never again be empty.